Welcome to another episode of Bloodlust Boxing. I'm Sav,
And I'm Bez.
and we're joined by Ben. All right, Ben?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Not bad,
mate.
not bad. So we'll be getting Ben's alternative views on what's been going on this week. We just wanted to put together like a little mini podcast, just tying up everything. There's been a lot said from various different people, but we just wanted to tie it up in one little podcast. And I'll go over to Baz first. So I think last time we talked, it just come out the news, and there was a lot going on, and I think we covered a lot actually in that podcast because we were asking the questions about who leaked the information. Did Chris Eubank Sr. know about the tainted sample? And
I think we can probably say that's probably a yes at the moment, then, can't we?
yeah. I mean, there's been more come out on that side over the last couple of days, isn't it? And then with the board as well. So there was a big question mark about the British Boxing Board, and it looks like, from what we understand, they were aware of the whole situation when the sample came out and tested positive. They were informed along with the relevant parties. From what Eddie Hearn was saying, the board put us were almost trying to put a stop on it from the start, but that wasn't entirely clear at the time when we spoke last. But the general public didn't get that knowledge, did we? So we all found out a bit later on. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, Frank Warren's come out today and dropped a video and basically gone over the fact that there is a couple of rules regarding the boxing border control that cover those areas, and that they were well within their rights to cancel the fight and that they had the power to do that. So in terms of Eddie's and Wasserman's attempt to try and carry the fight on, I mean, well, whether they were actually going to do the fight or not, we don't know for sure, but it seems like they wouldn't have been able to either way because the Boxing Board of Control were well within their rights to cancel it.
Yeah, the British Boxing Board. Yeah, well, it's a tricky one because they obviously recognise UCAD. The test that Conor Benn fouled on was the VADA test.
Yeah.
And so officially he wasn't suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control, but what was the word they used to stop the fight?
I thought they weren't going to sanction it, is essentially what it was going to come down to.
Yeah. There was. I was thinking the technical legal terms. They were well. they said they'd prohibited. That's the word. Prohibited the fight. But yeah, basically they weren't going to sanction it. But yeah, what do you reckon on that, Ben?
For me, I think this is an interesting case. Obviously, as the governing body, the Board of Boxing Control can always call off a fight if they want to, and Matchroom, as the promoter, and Eddie Hearn are always going to do what they can to keep the fight going, and I don't blame them. The amount of money that would have gone into the fight, setting it up, all the fighters on the undercard, etc.
Or the promotion that they've done,
the promotion will be insane because it's about getting talked about in the press, and all the little spots they'd have done, interviews, etc. So I don't blame Eddie and Matchroom for trying to get the fight to go ahead, and I think Ben was trying to keep the fight alive. I think Chris Eubank probably wanted the fight to go ahead fairly strongly as well. I think he was allowed, personally. But for me, look, VADA came out. He found a VADA test. Obviously, there's a lot of testing on this fight, and I personally think that the governing body can always prohibit a fight if they want to, and they have the ultimate power. That's the whole point of having a sanctioning body. So of course they can always come out. But if I've got VADA testing, I can understand that there'd be a situation where they'd let the fight go ahead because it's like, it's not our test. They've been clean on our tests, and therefore we are going to sanction the fight. I can see a scenario where that happens, but it would not look good if they did, because I would argue VADA is a more worldwide recognised testing body. I think that they've probably got more respect within multiple industries, cross sports, especially combat sports. So I think they've got more sophisticated testing. And, when it comes to performance enhancing drugs, generally it's the cheaters have the advantage. They're one step ahead. They're coming up with the latest tech, and then the testing bodies have to kind of figure stuff out after the fact. So, the bigger and better funded organisations are usually going to be able to find things that the smaller organisations can't. And therefore, I do understand and agree that if I've got a positive test coming from something that was contractually agreed, that we're going to do all these forms of testing to protect the fighter. It's not like we're talking about a cyclist who's going to outcycle you on the Tour de France. We're talking about a sport where death is inevitable over a long enough timeline, and you've got to protect the fighters. So for me, I think it's a good decision, especially when the offence or the alleged offence is for something that's increased in testosterone, which is going to increase strength, power, and could ultimately lead to something that none of us want to see happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the time when we spoke about it last, there was little known about the drug from our side of things. You've got the classic ones which come out, and then I think Canelo failed for it, didn't he? And they blamed the Mexican beef. And there's been a couple of other fighters who've done the same. And
problem that's interesting because they call them Mexican supplements. So Mexican beef just sounds like an evolution of the slang.
But
you can't really pass this one off, though. This is the issue. Well,
that's the problem, isn't it? Because there's no way this should have been in his system at all, is there? I mean,
listen, there is a big problem with supplementation, and so a lot of these supplements are produced in the same countries abroad, and the way they deal with the VATs, like anything, leaves a residue, right? Absolutely anything. And as testing gets more sophisticated, it's easier to pick up smaller and smaller trace amounts of whatever it is that we're talking about. So if we were to be completely objective and cover all bases, the reality is it is super easy to take a tainted supplement, and it happens all the time. And there's supplements that aren't deliberately tainted that get tested and they come out and they've got things in them. Now we might be cynical and say it's to their benefit that they accidentally have trace amounts of PEDs in, because they are marketing this as a product that gives you the benefits of PEDs without taking the PEDs. So I'm not saying that there aren't cynical applications of this, but there are genuine businesses that are trying to produce supplements and they come back tainted, and there's so much research on it. So could it be a poorly cleaned vat that something was in the supplement? 100% it could. But if Ben has followed the proper protocols, he'll have batch numbers, he'll have samples from the supplements that he'd be taking, and he'd be able to prove it. He'll be able to go, here's what I had, these are the things I took. They can test it all, and then they'll go and get products from the same batch and make sure that he hasn't just bunged something in there himself to try and make it look like a tainted sample. So, we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt in the first instance, for me, and recognise that there are tainted supplements for 100%. But I did find it interesting that Eubank thinks that he's innocent. He hasn't deliberately taken anything, but he thinks the people around him have given him something without him knowing. And I thought that was interesting. And let's be honest, don't tell him. He'll plead his innocence with total belief, but he'll also get the benefits if he gets away with it. I can see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's that whole thing that's come out, the conspiracy theory with the doctor surrounding Conor Benn, and he's Dr. Sajid, I think, Usman. Basically, I think on his website he had that he can help to increase testosterone levels, and he's worked with a number of fighters, and he boasted about having Conor Benn on there. He works with Tyson Fury. I know there was an interview on the weekend where Tyson Fury confirmed that he's working with him. And then basically, since the link has come about, he's taken down his website, which
I can see where this is going next. Wilder's going to come out with a new video tomorrow to say that Tyson Fury's taken peds and that's why he won.
You know what? That's exactly what I was thinking before. That's exactly what I was thinking.
No one's ever looked at Tyson and gone, "There's a man on PEDs." That's right.
Well, that's the thing. I guess he hasn't really got the body for it, but then he has got an amazing engine, isn't he? So I mean, no, we're not suggesting anything, but I'm just saying it's a bit of a weird link that you've got this doctor who's, as I said, he's been doing the rounds recently on the various podcasts where there's a clip of him and he's saying how you can avoid getting pinged for tests. And I think he was meant to be doing it from an educational point of view from the podcast, but it almost came across, if you didn't know what the podcast was about, that it was almost like a cheat sheet. And yeah, it's a bit of a weird thing. And there is I guess looking at that, then maybe, and keeping in mind what Chris Eubank Sr. has been saying, potentially Conor Benn maybe took something that he was given and he didn't realize what it was. But then as a professional athlete, you have to know everything that's going in your body, don't you? Because I saw an interview earlier today with, I think Joe Cordina was saying that when he's having supplements, he has to look for a certain, almost going back to what you were saying, Ben, there's a label on there and there's a little thing that he looks out for on the supplements to make sure that it's been tested and everything's clean.
Doesn't contain nuts.
But there's been various stories I've heard from boxers where they've said, like even like a glass of water, something like that, when they've been getting ready for a fight, sometimes they're paranoid that they wouldn't just take that. So it's, as an athlete, you need to be so aware of what's going into your body, especially when you're fighting at this level. So it's a tricky one.
And it sounds tough, but when you're getting paid what they're getting paid, you could be a bit more vigilant. It's not like us going down a kebab shop on a Friday night and sweeping fights. These are professional athletes at the end of the day. There is big money on the line for them, for the promoters and for the people as well. I mean, I dread to think the amount of money that went on the book for that fight, and it can impact all sorts of people.
Well, yeah, there's been various people phoning up on the undercard and saying how they're all out of pocket. And I think it's probably more the general problem with boxing, isn't it? Because when these big fights fall through, it's the people on the undercard and the businesses surrounding that suffer. But there needs to be really something there. I don't know if there's an insurance thing where they could do, where they just get insurance to cover the losses, but then you'd be paying.
In MMA, they've got it in MMA.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you get your show money. So in MMA, well, in the UFC, they do a show and a win bonus generally for undercard fighters, and it's a way to incentivize good performances. And if the fight falls through, they'll give, either if the whole event falls through, they'll normally schedule it for like a week or two later and put it on. But if that's not a possibility, then they get their show money. And they lose the opportunity for the win bonus, but at least they've had their camp covered. And,
that's amazing.
Good.
Yeah. So they almost need to definitely do something like that in the boxing world, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't take for a fight, your trainers, your gym, your agent, all of that, and your own living, etc. And then all of a sudden you've turned around and you got nothing.
Who pays for that though, Ben? Would it be Dana White who pays for that?
The UFC insurance, yeah.
Insurance, right. Yeah.
So everyone would have to come together to put in for a little kitty or something, wouldn't they?
To do that in boxing. Having all these different organisations, you lose the economies of scale and purchasing power. So it's trickier, but they're still, Ring, WBO. These aren't small organisations. They could still afford to put some coverage in place for the fighters.
Yeah, definitely. I know when COVID hit before, I mean, on the flips, like Wimbledon, for example, there was insurance in place there to cover for pandemics. Like they were ultra covered there, but something like that on the boxing side, and as you said, like if they're doing it for the UFC, well, they should be able to do it for boxing as well. But in terms of, there's been various people coming out saying, they think he's guilty and they should throw the book at him. And to be honest, learning a bit more about the drug, it does seem like it is something that's used by bodybuilders to cycle off, from what I understand. Once they've gone through a cycle of steroids, they use it to taper off, to keep their testosterone levels, to normalize it and mask it as well. Yeah. So it just looks really damaging when you look at that. And there's been various other boxers who've come out. I think Algieri did an interview. He fought Conor Benn last, and he said there were question marks around the camp then, and there've been rumors. And yeah, I mean, you can't really expect it.
It's really easy for them to just jump on the bandwagon now, isn't it? Though, I mean,
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, they're well within their rights, because they could say that he's been using the same substance for their fights, but it's so easy to blame it all on that Conor Benn won those fights. I mean, at the end of the day, he would still need the talent to outbox them and to win those fights. The PEDs aren't going to win the fights based on talent, are they?
No, but if I can hit you 30% harder, I mean, that's a arbitrary number plucked out of the sky. But if I can hit you 30% harder than I could, I only need to get a couple of lucky punches and you're out. But that brings me on, not to take over from Sav, but an interesting question, which is, should there be and this is in sports in general, when do we go, listen, we just want to see the freaks, let them go, and let everyone just take what they want. Let's buy them the Mexican horse meat and
well, that is one of the questions that's come up in the past, where it's a case of like, is it so prevalent that you just have to let them run with it now? And it's until, as you said before, boxing is so fragmented. You've got different bodies. It's hard to unify. It's not like football where you've got sort of FIFA, UEFA, whatever.
There's not really one big conglomerate, is there?
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I like that idea of like, just a free for where everyone just boosts up and goes at it.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Rock.
It'd almost be like one of those things where you've got a little sidebar when you're watching the fight, and it's like, well, I've taken this drug, and this drug at this level, and they'll be like, and they're mixing and matching, and you'll be judging it on what they've had and how good it is.
We'd all be on the dark web going, oh, that looks a good one.
I'm wondering, after all of this thing, how many men have started taking the missus's pill? It's like, hang on a minute, if it's that good, I might just that.
I haven't yet, but I've told her she needs to get bang on it, because she hasn't.
The wife goes to
maybe that explains why she's able to boss me around so easily. Like, elevated level.
She goes to the cupboard to look for it, and it's like, oh, Sam, have you been at it again? Like, but no, it's a tricky one. But in terms of, I think what we need to see, and I think what everyone's asking for, is for Conor Benn to come out and say how this potentially got in his system, because it needs to give some sort of an explanation, doesn't it? As I said, it's not something that naturally just performs there. I think, Ben, you said, okay, maybe it's like a tainted supplement or something like that. But even then, it's such a tricky link to get that in there. But I think we need some sort of explanation as to how, from his point of view, it's got in there, because it doesn't randomly just show up, does it?
But let's work on the presupposition that he is innocent.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't say how it got in there. That takes time and due process. Let's say it's a tainted supplement. They're going to have to go through his supplements, test them. They're going to have to go and find equivalent batch numbers and test them. And then they would come back, report the findings. I mean, I know of fighters who spent millions to do this stuff themselves and facilitate additional tests and expedite the process, you know, because they care about their name so much. They know they're innocent.
Yeah. Well, they've
so
got potentially millions to lose, hasn't it? Because I mean, I think it's going to get
tens of millions, isn't it? And so for me, it's one of those where in an ideal world, you need him to come out quick and save the day and give us a storyline you can buy into.
Yeah.
But that's unrealistic if he isn't. To be honest, the quicker he comes out with a line, the more likely he is to be, you know, spreading terminological inexactitudes, to be honest, because if he's telling the truth, he'd need a bit more time to get to a conclusion for me. Plus, it doesn't look like he's not on something. So, you know, it's not like you know, it's not like he's definitely innocent.
Yeah. But then he's been crushing it in the gym, hasn't he? He's been working out. He's in the videos.
Been crushing it.
I've been around. I've got a background in the gym, and I've been around a lot of people that crush it in the gym. Usually, the ones that look like they're crushing it, they've got a little bit of extra help. You know?
But looking at the wider picture with Chris Eubank Jr. Sorry, Baz, to cut you off. I saw some pictures of him when it weighing in after, you know, he said he was going to make weight. He made weight. And for me, it almost reinforced the fact that actually it's probably better this fight didn't go ahead because he didn't look healthy at all. And I think in a couple of earlier videos, Baz, we talked about it and how he looked a bit gaunt in his last couple of fights. And just looking at the frame, I wouldn't be comfortable watching him fight.
No.
If it weighing in at that level, it's not safe at all, is it?
I think they would have to bin the rehydration clause for sure because it didn't look right. I mean, I've seen bodybuilders look less muscly than him in terms of body fat ratio.
It was like a cross between.
He had no body fat on him whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. There was nothing there. There was just, I don't know. I didn't. Yeah. For me, I saw those like two pictures of him, and I wouldn't want to see him fight.
No,
based on those pictures, and I don't see how this fight could possibly go ahead. But I mean, just conscious of time, we've got about 2 minutes, but just sort of final thoughts. Ben, I'll go to you first.
I agree with you that for me, I don't think there's a problem making the weight. There's a problem making the weight and then matching the rehydration, which no one knows, or I have not yet seen the quantities that they were allowed to increase in weight from one day to the next. But he was going to weigh in again. I've heard it's circa 10 pounds. I have a problem with weight cutting in general. You know, I think that everyone should just have to do hydration tests. They do it in other forms of combat sport, and it works quite well. And that's what I believe in. For me, listen, I think, to quote Nate Diaz, everyone's on steroids, so don't trust anyone if you're at the top of the I think that it's the rare exception when they're not taking something. So for me, I'm like, look, he's got call, probably, but he might be innocent, so I'm not going to accuse him of it. But I think the fans lost out here. I think this is a legacy fight. It was huge. And there's lots of talk about what's up next. I hope the next fight is Conor Benn. Ditch the hydration clause. The fears for me with the hydration clause is it's so easy to get knocked out. So once you've dehydrated yourself that much and that close to the fight, so that the problem is the maintenance of dehydration from one day to the next. Yes, you're rehydrating to a degree. 10 pounds sounds like a crazy amount. If the fighter's dropped 16, 18, 20 pounds, which are all like realistic numbers that do happen.
And that'd be a water, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Baz...
and if he doesn't fight Ben next, then I would quite like to see him go against Triple G or Billy Joe. You know, I know that's an outside chance, but...
Yeah, he said he's coming back, didn't he? Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, there's history with him there and the old nasal spray, but we haven't really got time to go into it. We're going to get cut off in a minute, but Baz, yeah, Baz. Any final thoughts there?
Yeah, so just on that, I mean, I feel like we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, it's going to take a bit of time to get results back and stuff like that, to try and clear his name. So we can't really go too hard on him yet. But yeah, let's see what happens with it.
Yeah, it sounds good.
The way he said, yeah, it sounds like he's excited. So when he can go at him, he's
go full speed ahead. Yeah, we've lost you, Ben. The excitement will happen. Your camera cut out.
Yeah, I've hanged the space bar. Got excited.
But yeah, we'll be interested to see what happens there. And yeah, just wanted to say a massive shout out to our subscribers. We hit 100 I can't speak. 100 subscribers on the weekend. So yeah, massive thanks to number 100 and everyone else who subscribed. And I think we might even do a little giveaway when we get to 250, won't we, Baz? Maybe.
Yeah, I think they're due
maybe
that.
A little Bloodlust boxing hoodie.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think we can rustle something up.
Yeah, find something in the locker.
I'm going to be number 250 then.
250. Yeah, number
What do you mean?
two.
You're not subscribed already?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to unsubscribe at 249.
Well, I think to keep it fair, what we'll do is we'll have like a question maybe for everyone to get involved to celebrate the ones who were there from the beginning as well. Yeah, but yeah, we'll give it a go. But yeah, thanks again, and yeah, thanks, Ben. We'll definitely be getting you back on again if you'll have us, and yeah, I appreciate the insight there.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
No, it's great. Thank you. Cheers. All right. Well, that's it from me, Sav, Baz, and Ben. Thanks for watching Bloodlust Boxing. Cheers.